Well, hello, everybody. It's Margo back with another episode of Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. Man, am I glad to be here with you. But let me pose a question. Do you want to launch a new career? Let me ask you, do you want to found and even grow your business? And how about restoring personal and those business relationships that, you're just not satisfied with? And surely, I know that everybody wants to increase their wealth, but wouldn't it be great to achieve these places, these states in life, while experiencing a deeper sense of joy, spiritual attunement, purpose, presence in your life? Well, the guest that I have coming before you in a few minutes, she is a life and business coach, able to deliver all of that to you, guide you so that you can have a life that is totally, totally amazing. Let me introduce everybody to Miss Valentina and Savelyeva. Valentina, thank
you
for it. You see, I had to go twice because I thought this
is
not going to defeat me. Valentina, thank you for joining us. Oh, my goodness. Listeners, this lady is a wealth of information. She is a soul-centered life and business coach, not just a life and business coach, a soul-centered life business coach. She is a speaker, workshop leader, and she coaches clients all around the world. Now, Valentina, when I first met you, I thought, oh, this lady is, 25 years at best? But when I look at what you've done, your body of work, what you bring to us, all of us as a life and business coach, will you tie in your bio? Let us all know, how is it that when you arrive here in 2018, you are able to empower our lives in such a way?
Well, first of all, Margo, thank you for having me on the show. It's just truly such a treat to connect with you. I'm just so inspired and moved by your work, by your voice, and by this beautiful platform that you've created. So it's just truly a privilege. And I'm just genuinely very excited and moved. And kind of answering your question, and thank you for such a beautiful introduction. I don't think I even told you the beginning of my story. Would it be okay to share now?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, because I feel like it may be supportive for the listeners.
Mm-hmm.
So my story began, a while ago. I was born in Soviet Union. So I don't know if we talked about this. I was born in Soviet Union, so a country, at the time where, to be honest, most people did not have a voice. And so I had a yearning for knowing what my voice is and how to express it, really, really early on. It was just something that was very present. And the other thing that kind of really seeded, was a big seed for me is since early on, I was that kid standing in line, at 8 years old, those long queues, gray queues, somebody would come over. For some reason, a lady would always smell like cigarettes, and she would write a number, 134 or something. And that's what I did after school for a couple of years, waiting in line and hoping to get, a couple of loaves of bread. So, that hunger, the experience of hunger and the experience of not having a voice was something that was just really present early on. So, and I still remember it, the grumbling in my stomach and also just feeling like I don't know what my voice is. So when I moved to U.S., and I was 19, I thought I was an adult when I moved, but that yearning stayed, the yearning to know what my voice is and to express it, but also the yearning for just genuine hunger. And of course, it expressed itself, externally. So I got my business degree. I spent over a decade teaching financial training seminars at a lot of business schools. I've traveled to a lot of very big companies, big names all over U.S. and Europe. So my resume can look very exciting to most people. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, since early on, and I was 17 when I bought my first self-development book, there was this yearning to answer the big questions. What am I here for? What's my contribution? like, why am I on this planet? So, and I get all emotional even thinking about it, because that journey was unfolding this entire time, kind of brought me to so many teachers and spiritual teachers, psychology teachers. Eventually, in my mid-30s, it brought me to University of Santa Monica, where I got my master's in spiritual psychology. But it's been such a very deep personal quest for finding, like, my soul purpose, like, what is my expression here? And that was kind of like a big path. And what happened a few years back is I was, unfolding in my own journey. And God knows I've gone through so many transitions in my life, and I'm happy to share. But the calling inside, just came really, really strong. My work is to teach this type of work to others. My work is to help others find their voices and support them in unfolding, be that, finding a voice to start a new business that is very heart-centered, finding a voice as a speaker, finding a voice, in the relationship. It's all about finding our voice. And I was terrified, like, leaving. I was very comfortable making multiple six digits, most of my life, and leaving all that. And to be honest, surrendering into divine unknowing and allowing myself to be really held by grace, and that's when magic unfolded. So, and in many ways, me having gone through that experience over and over again, to be honest, like surrendering into this big divine unknowing, as I like to call it, and allowing myself to be supported by life. And in many ways, that's what I do now with my clients. And it's so precious to me, and it's just truly a privilege and honor, and just such a sacred place to be. So that's kind of like a little bit of my personal story and what moved me. And I'm happy to share more, but that's what I just feel like it's such a deep, sacred privilege every day to do the work that I do.
Oh, it is. It is. And to take a person from, it's like you took that major leap of faith. And it's one thing for a person to say, oh, I'll just have faith and just do this. But to actually have work with somebody who's done that, it's a totally different thing. And I guess that's what the first thing that came to my mind when a person is choosing a coach. Make sure they've done exactly what they're requiring of you. So when you tell a person, you can tell a person, move out of that comfort zone, move out of that zip code, whatever better is waiting for you. You can actually guide them. And wow, that's powerful stuff. Powerful, powerful stuff. I think, you know what, Valentina, yes. When you talked about the financial workshop leader that you were, you worked with some heavy hitters. So I want people to understand it's not like you walked away from working with mom and pop businesses and, you were on the phone, cold calling, hard calling, just everything on you were accomplished. You are accomplished in that field of finances and business administration. But you said that calling, that type of calling, set in your spirit, and you had to make a move. How does a person? What is it like to work with you now that you are heart-centered and soul-centered? What is it like to work with Valentina?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that question, Margo. And I appreciate that I appreciate you picking up on that piece of, honoring the calling and stepping out of that comfort zone, of my very accomplished, job in my case. And there were many other situations similar to that. And in many ways, when I see people coming into my practice, that's exactly what happens. Pretty much every single person comes in, and there is always a calling, a yearning, a dream, something that is unfulfilled. One of the lines that really stood out for me, I forgot who said it, and it was like one of the biggest fears of mine for a very long time is, I don't want to die with my song still inside me, it was just so present for me. And in many ways, that's what I see when people come into my practice, and I work with people from all over the world, and it's always the same, people come in and there is a calling, a calling to express themselves. It could be, their business. It could, a lot of times people begin by talking about finances and some sort of an idea. But what I find when we really slow down, because that's what coaching is, kind of slowing down, there's usually something even deeper, like a yearning to make a meaningful contribution, to leave a legacy. I can tell you, like, I've heard all kinds of stories from a woman who is running a business, but underneath her yearning is to support, women in third world countries. There were just so many, another woman, she's, building a coaching business, but again, the impact that she's having with mindfulness on corporations, just like truly moving. So it's, I find most of us have a connection to something so deep and profound. I call it higher power, God, spirit, could be called inner wisdom. But to me, it's creating a space for the client to connect to that calling inside and to really, in many ways, I find it's not that we create a vision. It's like the vision is almost creating us and kind of pulling us to step fully into who we're meant to be. And in many ways, as a coach, I find my job is to create a container, and there are lots of tools that I use, from my psychology background, business background, but it's really all about withdrawing that wisdom, that brilliance, that greatness that's already inside of the client in front of me, and let them literally kind of be born, allow them to unfold into themselves more fully. And each time it's unique, and I can't tell you how many miracles been unfolding from that process. And it's just very tender to me. On a practical sense, there are things that I do, like we tune in, usually we slow down, we tune in where the person is, what they want to create. And what happens, Margo, this is so fascinating to me, it happens every time, as the person steps in and really allows themselves to speak, yes, I have this idea for a business. I have this idea for a new career. I have this idea, I really want to have a new deep relationship, because a lot of us, I've been divorced by the age of 30. I definitely have gone through my share of relationships. Most of my relationships have been very deep and, going through those. So really allowing yourself to be in that vision. What happens is any of the, I call it inner fluff or inner material or inner obstacles, any doubts, any limitations, any stories that we may hold inside that have been preventing us from living that life get amplified. Just like instantaneously. So, and they become really big. And that's when, they become very visible. And it's great. Most of us become incredibly uncomfortable in that moment. It's, and a lot of times, you've been there, I've been, we've all been there. I'm still working with my coaches. I always have a coach for that reason, because I'm a human being and I also keep growing, but that's an incredibly uncomfortable place to be. But it's also incredibly profound place to be, because now we can actually see all that inner material that was holding us back, so we can clear it. It's in my coaching practice, and I'm really grateful that I have both, the psychology background and very deep spiritual kind of context for how I work with people, but also I do have a very strong business background. So, and I like to work with both. And what I found, by slowing down to clear those inner stories, inner material, honestly, the success just becomes almost effortless. And that's the joy, that's the spiritual attunement. And I was just talking to a client, literally, was it yesterday or the day before? Anyway, she was looking for a job for a while, and she was getting nervous. She has kids. She went through a divorce, so there was a lot coming up for her. And we kept getting recentered, kept kind of surrendering into her inner knowing, kept, tuning in and clearing all the inner material that was coming up. And I can share more resources how to do that. And yesterday she texted me and we got on the phone. She got the offer for the job that she wanted, and it had all the pieces that she wanted to create, and we were co-creating those during our work together. And now it was so beautiful to listen to her. She was ecstatic. It had incredible company, incredible, level of consciousness, mindfulness, benefit, salary. And this was so funny to hear. She said, you know what? It was so easy. I almost kind of doubt, is it okay to enjoy it? It's just a little weird. Maybe I should. It was hilarious. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
It's almost like she was saying, I wish I kind of struggled more, but then I feel like it's kind of strange, you know. And I find this all the time. So, but in many ways, I find this is our natural flow. That ease and grace is our natural birthright. Yeah. And by clearing all that inner material, that's the flow, that's the joy, and also, you know, beautiful success. So it was just hilarious, but also so human and so real. I can certainly relate to that. Anyway, just felt called to share that with you right now.
I'm so glad that you did. And I picked up on how you said, I think probably about 4 times, we slowed down. Instead of being anxious and just in a fit, slow down. It's kind of like what Brother Bedford always says, let it become what it's going to become organically. And it's like that word just becomes real. Once you hear it, then it takes on its life, and it does make itself manifest, and you understand what it's all about. So, that you know what, when you shared that story, it's almost like she had to find a job because you slowed her down and you got her focused, and you put her legs back up under her, and it had to happen. That is so awesome. Oh, man. Another thing I heard you say.
Yeah, the magic of slowing down. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's profound, because you know what? We don't know how to do that. When you're working in corporate America or just living, you don't know how to slow down. I know I still struggle with that. You know, if it just happens, I'm like your client. It was almost too easy. Man, is this real? Or finally something happens, you say, dang, this is real. I can't believe it. Well, why can't you believe it? You know? So we have to unlearn so much.
Yes.
But that's why we need a coach.
That's hilarious. And Margo, I so appreciate that you kind of know, like, picking up on some of those thoughts that a lot of us have. You know, this was too easy. Like, can I trust this? Can I believe this? Is this going to last? So in many ways, you're being very perceptive, and there's a lot of value in acknowledging, you know, those inner I call them inner stories. So what happens is, and I find it may be useful for the listeners to hear that as well. What happens is, you know, psychologically, and this is just pure psychology, the brain is continuously bombarded with so much stimulus. It literally cannot process all of it. So what happens is it has to create a filtering system to choose what it's going to receive. And that filtering system, in many ways, is what you just shared. You know, like our thoughts, it's kind of like becomes a filtering system. So I call them our stories, our inner stories. So in many ways, by kind of first of all becoming aware of them and then choosing them more intentionally, that's when the profound shifts take place as well. So there's such great power that's available for us by simply becoming aware. Well, what's my filter? You know, and a lot of us have the default filters from our parents, from their parents, from whatever hardships they've gone through. You know, I definitely come from a family and a country where there was a lot of scarcity mentality, a lot of situations when people didn't have voices. So, you know, if I chose to keep that filtering system, which for a while I did, you know, work hard, you know, money doesn't grow on trees, a lot of that type of mentality, that was the filtering system for a while. And I'm really grateful to for having the coaches that I had for shifting intentionally my filtering system into, money comes easily and it's fun. You know, I get to share something from the heart that is a lot of value. It's my filtering system changed, and I literally receive a whole new level of reality, and my life is shifted as well. And that's literally what happens with every single person that I work with, and, you know, I see that in you, and to me that is just so exciting, and to be honest, like, very humbling every single time. It's just incredibly humbling to me too.
It's like being on another planet. Like somebody took the, as you hear people say, they took the blinds off of my eyes. This is a true state of being. This is the real way you're supposed to live, the real way you're supposed to feel, the real way you're supposed to work and and move about the planet. And everything doesn't have to be humdrum and busy, off the chain, crazy, you know, and you're so tired you can't even enjoy life. Who wants to live like that 26, 30, 35 years? Can the body even hold up under that? After a while, I couldn't even hold up under that anymore. It was too much, you know. So, but you know what,
I'm so with you. I hear you.
Oh, yeah. I think that's why people have the heart attacks and the cancer and stuff. That pace is just, it's obscene. It's downright obscene. But you can bring people out of that if they want to come out of that, if they get in contact with you. My next thought, and I'm wondering, I know that there is a lot of fear that comes into even approaching this reinvention process, this change of mindset, this change of being. How do you direct your clients to deal with this thing of fear?
Yeah, and Margo, thank you for bringing fear forward, because in many ways it would be very inauthentic if we didn't, because fear, I find, is almost like a companion that comes in every time we try to step into something bigger, every single time. And so I'm very familiar with it. You know, I experience fear on a daily basis because I continuously stretch myself. You know, like one of my intentions, for example, for the next 6 months, and I'm a speaker, is to give a TED Talk. So there's definitely a lot of fear that came up for me and kind of working through that. So I can certainly personally relate. And what I do with fear is, well, first of all, I'm not afraid of fear. Fear is just, okay, it's just part of the equation. So in many ways, I change the context for how we hold fear. In many ways, I find fear is almost like a friend, because usually fear will not come up if we're not stretching ourselves. Like, for example, if I say, oh, Margo, you know, do you want to spend the evening, you know, watching some movies at home? Most likely fear probably won't come up, you know, definitely won't come up for me, you know, if I'm like trying to like just have a quiet evening. But if I start talking about, you know, I'm going to go to a new meeting, maybe I'll meet somebody new, or maybe I'll make a new bold proposal for, you know, the program that I just developed. That's when the fear comes up, because it's something new and I'm being stretched out. So the first thing that we do is change the context. So in many ways, when fear comes up, it's like, great, I am, you know, stretching myself. And then there's a few other things to do with fear. It could be valuable as an exercise to give fear a voice, because usually it's a part of ourselves that's trying to keep us safe. So there are really beautiful intentions. And then once that fear gets a voice, to kind of really, really hear that part, because in many ways that part is beautiful. It's trying to keep us safe. It's trying to keep us, you know, nurtured, and to have a dialogue with that part. Because a lot of times it just wants to be heard, and it could be incredibly profound.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like that could be a beautiful exercise in of itself that everyone can do, just even for an experiment. And you know what, since we're talking about fear, and one of my intentions for our talk is to give listeners as much as I possibly can, one exercise I also like to offer my clients, and I do this myself quite often. Anytime I have a lot of energy come up, let's say fear or anger or sadness, I mean, we're humans. I had this experience even this morning. You know, I had a conversation that just brought up some anger in me. So, and again, I'm a human being, so I knew, like, wow, I had some material that come up. So what I like to do in those situations is something called, it's a great exercise, called free-form writing. So what I did is just light a candle, because a candle kind of releases some of that negative energy, also creates a beautiful container. And then I usually do a prayer, kind of call in the light, you know, set the intention to clear any negativity, any fears, any doubts. And then I just write. And I write anything that might be present in my mind, not even complete sentences. It could be like scribbles. Sometimes it's scribbles. Sometimes it's a little bit slower. But just to allow that energy to come out. And, you know, sometimes I write for 10 minutes. I think today I wrote for 20. But what's so magical is as that energy gets released, then there's an openness that gets created. And from that
Oh, wow.
openness, we can connect, to
So
connect
what
with the
you're
inner
saying
wisdom.
I had never heard the way you spoke of fear, wanting to have a conversation with us. Never heard that before. So it really is a form of energy that wants to communicate with us, and once it does, then we can handle it. Same thing with emotions that come up and want to overwhelm us. They just are. Am I hearing you correctly? That these are just energy sources that want to communicate with us?
Yes. And so many of them just feel unheard. And in many ways, it's almost like we have this inner team inside of us, just inner parts of ourselves that just feel unexpressed and unheard. And in many ways, by creating space, giving them room to be heard. And in many ways, also be loved. Because just even think about ourselves. When we feel heard, we feel loved. So by hearing those parts of ourselves, especially the parts that are scared, angry, sad, have doubts, whatever they may be, they feel heard, they feel loved, and there's a softening that happens, an openness that takes place. And then those parts can begin to cooperate together very organically. They literally kind of become part of the same team. So just truly beautiful experience.
Wow. I know what you're saying is true, because it took me back when the light bulb went on while you were speaking, and I went back to when my mother passed, and how I decided to just kind of line up some things, the cards, and make a book and make up a special box for some things that belonged to her, and things and actually gave myself a permission to be honest about how I felt and how I feel, and just touch the things and smell the things and write and just be in that moment. And I remember, as you spoke, I remember, that just felt right, and I felt okay. I felt the sense of okay come over me. So I know what you're saying is powerful. Don't just stuff away. Is that when we get into the psychosis and neurosis, when we keep stuffing things away that are yelling at us? See this, hear me. We just act like nothing's going on. Is that when we kind of say, as they say, run off the tracks, run off the rails? Is that what happens to us?
Yeah, and Margo, I so appreciate you sharing this. That's exactly what it is. It almost takes more energy to keep, those feelings suppressed than to express them and to allow them to release. And energetically, emotions are, it's just energy. It needs to be expressed. And once it's expressed, it's gone. However, if we keep it suppressed, let's say, maybe I have a little grudge on someone and I keep suppressing it. Let's say it's a coworker and I'm pretending everything is great, but inside of me I'm kind of, I have a grudge. It's literally takes a lot. So part of my energy every single day, I have to invest part of my energy into keeping that grudge down. Now imagine what happens for most people. I may have a grudge against a coworker. I may have a few, little upsets over something that happened when I was a teenager, in my 20s, in my 30s. I have some, some unforgivenesses against, an ex-spouse, whatever else that might be. It's literally taking energy investment every single day to keep them, suppressed. And of course, after a while, it becomes exhausting, and that's when people blow up. That's when we, have those breakdowns. And also, that's when most people who come in kind of talk about, Valentina, how can you have all this energy? I'm really struggling with energy. Well, and I look at the person, and most of the time it's because the energy is being invested in so much of that suppressing that there's very little left for actual creative process. Wow. So it's very practical, like misallocation. When I talk business, we talk a lot about allocation of resources and money, making investments that pay good dividends. It's the same thing with our energy and our creative energy. A lot of us unconsciously invest our energy in suppressing all those, upsets and grudges and judgments. So when people come into the coaching practice or begin doing self-development work, by releasing those, grudges and judgments, the energy also gets released. And now the person feels, oh my God, I wake up, I have all this energy. and now they can invest it into their business, into their relationships, and the life seems to magically unfold so much easier. And there is a reason for that, because that energy now can flow and be invested in a lot more intentional way.
Oh, God.
Yeah. It's really exciting.
It is. This is some exciting stuff. I tell you what.
Yeah.
Valentina, how can a person get in contact with you to work with you? And I'm going to hold on a moment, because I want people to have a chance to run and get a pen, pencil, paper, whatever, because what you're talking about is oh, my goodness, it is totally, totally amazing. So while people are running to get a paper, pencil, or whatever, do you have any workshops or anything coming up in the L.A. area anytime in the summer or maybe the fall? Anything coming up?
I will be. Right now, the one that I can announce is the one for April. I will have more. The best way to find out about the workshops and public speaking engagements that I do would be to go on my website and check under the events. I will be posting them there. So once the listeners get their writing materials, the easiest way to contact me is to go on the website. There's great information. You can read more about the work that I do, and also to contact me if you have any questions. I'm also happy to get into conversations. If you're listening to this and would like to get into conversation, I can give my phone number as well. So the best way to contact would be either one of those.
Okay.
Should I share those now?
Well, while they're going to get what they need so that they can catch catch how to find you, I want to read this so that people know how intense you are once they get into your coaching program. Says that you partner with people of 4 to 6 months, so it's not a flash in the pan type of thing. Don't go to Valentina thinking that in 2 days everything's going to be totally different and better. Not to say that she's not a miracle worker, but I just want people to know that longevity thing, that consistency, you are the lady with that. And it says, if you're curious about coaching, let's connect for a brief call. I want to hear from you first, and at the end of the call, if it's supportive, we will set up a complimentary clarity session. This session is a deep dive into your vision and into any obstacles that may be in the way. This is what caught my eye. A client-coach relationship is a very special and intimate one. Out of deep respect for the coaching work, I only accept new clients once we both get a clear yes to work together during the clarity session. This is the lady you want to get in contact with. I tell you, this is the lady who you need to contact as far as your life and business coach. So, Valentina, will you tell everybody how they can get in contact with you, please?
Sure. So the easiest way is to go to my website. That would be www.Valentina, just like Valentine's Day, VALENTINA, then my long Russian last name. So S-A, V like Victor, E, L like love, Y, EVA.com. Valentina, SAVELYEVA.com. That's my website. There's plenty of information about the work that I do, the events, the speaking engagements, and also a very easy way to contact me. And you're also just welcome to give me a call, and we can get into conversation that way. My phone number is 323-426-4653. So, yeah, wow. I'm very available, and I love connecting with people. To me, it's just such a precious experience. And, Margo, thank you for reflecting on the process of connecting with the client, because to me it truly is just such a precious experience. And being with someone when we both get a clear yes to work together, and just the magic that gets co-created from that place is just truly precious to me.
Well, it lets us all know that you are results-oriented, and once you get the client to believe and what you see, there's a mutual agreement, then magic has to happen. Everybody's moving on a green light. It has to happen then. So How can I thank you so
Yeah.
much for coming onto the show? When I first met you, I knew that it was just going to be extraordinary and amazing. And I always tell the audience, you can't just come to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation and listen once. And this is definitely one of those shows where you're going to need 2, 3, 4 times, because you address fear. You just address so much, making things happen, stepping back. I'm not going to try to recap. Just everybody, listen again, glean from this lady. Give Valentina a call. Go to her website. Even her website is it just makes you feel good. It makes you feel earthy and attached. And you can tell that everything's been done with care. Everything has slowed down. I like that. Let it happen organically. I like that. So, I am Margo Levette. I have these great shows, and it's hard for me to back away. Oh, my goodness, but I have to. So to my audience, I say thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back next week with a brand new show. But as always, you can listen in at verkradio.com, and this show, along with the other shows, are always there. So listen on demand, listen when you want to, listen often. So until next week, I'm Margo Levette. I'll say bye-bye.
Bye.